Full Service Radio is proudly supported and hosted by Simplecast, the easiest way for a podcast creator to publish and distribute audio on the internet. For more information, visit simplecast.com. Recorded live from the lobby of the Line Hotel in Adams Morgan, Washington, D.C.
Welcome to Black Girl Missing, a podcast that covers stories of Black girls who were reported missing when they were under the age of 18. We're exercising caution and social distancing by recording for you from our homes in D.C., Philly, and the Jersey Shore. And this podcast is brought to you by Full Service Radio. Due to the sensitive and sometimes graphic nature of these cases, we advise listeners to use caution when listening. Black Girl Missing is supported in part by New Voices for Reproductive Justice. New Voices for Reproductive Justice is a social change organization dedicated to the health and well-being of Black women, femmes, and girls. I'm Asa.
I'm Feminista Jones.
And I'm Nikki.
How y'all doing?
I'm all right.
I'm having an okay week.
Yeah? You guys, it's our last episode of the season.
This is our last episode of the season. Oh, my goodness.
This is our final episode of the season. It's been an amazing season.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. Like, we really got through this thing that we started like over a year ago.
Yes, it's been almost a year.
That we've been building. Well, yeah, about a year. And we've been building and working on and pouring into. And we are rounding out our season.
Oh, my goodness.
This is fantastic. So clap it up for us. I'm just going to clap because you know what? Black women deserve applause. we do that. I mean, let's be honest here. Like we are three Black women doing a true crime podcast about missing Black girls.
Yeah.
We are innovators. We are different. We are unique. We are carving a space.
Absolutely.
We are representing for Black women in true crime.
Absolutely.
We are representing for the Black girls. This is amazing.
It is.
I'm so excited.
It's groundbreaking.
No, it really is. And I just, for those who are listening to us, we really can't wait to see and hear what we have coming up for the future for season 2. We're going to have that Patreon popping with bonus episodes.
Yes.
We are just going to be doing some amazing, amazing things, mainly because we know that you all love and support this show, and it's been phenomenal. And I'm just so overwhelmed by that. Everybody's doing good. All right, we're gonna pop into this. Let me clear my throat. Okay, so we open each show reviewing cases of girls who are currently missing that we call the Aisha Alert. We encourage you to pay close attention, check our social media, and help us help families who are still seeking answers and long for their loved ones' safe return. We'd like to note that we create these lists of currently missing Black girls in real time, so by the time the podcast episodes are released, there may have been some changes. We will have information on each case posted on our social media channels so that you can stay updated. Kayla Sneed is a 16-year-old girl from Orlando, Florida. Her grandmother last saw her on Sunday, May 10th at about 4:45 p.m. when she took out the garbage and exited the residence. According to her grandmother, Kayla has behavioral problems and is bipolar. While she does take prescribed medication, her grandmother said that she can function without it, but she does not know if she has her medication with her. Her grandmother also said that Kayla runs away often, but doesn't know where she could be. Kayla is said to be about 5 feet, 4 inches tall, weighs about 250 pounds. She has light brown skin with long black braided hair and burgundy tips. She was reportedly last seen wearing black pants with a white stripe with a red, white, and blue jacket. They ask that those who know where Kayla could be, please call the Orange County Sheriff's Office non-emergency line at 407-836-4357. Diamond Christina Mann Sheffield is a 16-year-old girl from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Diamond is reported to have run away from her home on the 400 block of Whale Street around 10 p.m. Monday, May 18th. Diamond is described as a Black female who is 5'6" in height and weighs 165 pounds with short black hair and red braids and brown eyes. She was last seen wearing a black t-shirt with Friends, Friends, printed on it, and pajama pants, the police said. It is also reported that she's been diagnosed with a cognitive condition. The Silver Alert notification system has been activated, and anyone with information regarding the whereabouts of Diamond is asked to call the Winston-Salem Police Department at 336-773-7700 or Crime Stoppers at 336-727-2800. Haley Marie McNeil is a 12-year-old girl from Henry County, Georgia. According to investigators, Haley has not been seen since late afternoon on Thursday, May 14th, near the area of Gallup Drive and Stockbridge. She's also known to be a runaway, and it is suspected that she has run away again. She's described as a girl around 5 feet 3 inches tall, weighing around 135 pounds with black hair and brown eyes. Anyone with information regarding her whereabouts is asked to contact Detective S. Foster or Henry County Non-Emergency Dispatch at 770-957-9121. Nikki, take it away.
Thank you for that, FJ. Hopefully those girls all arrive back at home safely. Today, we are going to attach an additional warning to this episode in regards to deceased bodies, as it can get a little bit graphic in some parts of the story. Memorial Day weekend in 2014 would be the last time that Kayla Hunter's laughs and her baby brother Christian Justice's coos would be heard by their mother, Alicia Fox. We recently released an episode about a little girl who was actively missing and was presumably taken from her now deceased mother. And in that episode, we touched a little bit on the controlling relationship dynamics that is often imposed on women and how it can affect children. Now, in the past, we've mentioned how men can sometimes create a dangerous environment for children when they don't get their way or when there is conflict. And I have a phrase that I use pretty frequently, that the biggest threat to the safety and well-being of women and children is men. And it is often used as an umbrella under which a lot of harm can live.
That's
and
real.
Can
you say that again, please? Can you just repeat that? Because I don't know if the people listening heard you
and are receptive to that.
Like, I don't know. They might need some emphasis. Can you repeat that for the audience, please?
The biggest threat to the safety and well-being of women and children is men.
Okay.
And just to round out some clarification, that's not just about in-home abuse. That's about from legislation all the way down to interpersonal communication in relationships.
You preaching.
You know, I mean, it touches every single part of our lives. It's, you know, from reproductive justice on down.
Yep.
So that may be an episode for another time, actually.
Bonus content.
Patreon.
Hey. So, Saturday, May 24th, 2014, Alicia Fox and her two children, Kayla Hunter and Christian Justice, made their rounds to family gatherings for the 3-day weekend for Memorial Day. You know how we do. We visit family. We grab a couple to-go plates of barbecue. And the weather was really nice. It was clear skies and 70 degrees in Detroit, Michigan on that weekend. That Sunday evening, May 25th, Alicia and her husband of 4 months, Aaron Justice, allegedly argued, and he shot her twice in the head.
Oh, my God.
Now,
come on.
This story has a lot of moving parts that move very quickly. So I'm going to have to do a couple of backtracks a few times just so that we get the timeline right. Mm-hmm. Now, according to Alicia's family, Justice lied to his wife a lot and reportedly told people that he only married her for money. And he had a criminal record that included quite a few instances of assault against women. So it wasn't surprising that only 4 months into their marriage, Alicia packed her things and began moving out of the home that they shared. Now, the weekend of Memorial Day in 2014, the last person to see Alicia and her children alive was her cousin. And sometime after that, they began arguing, and Justice says he blacked out. when he came to, he was literally shooting her.
Okay, then.
Nah, man.
But also,
Nope.
this part speaks to the dangers that come with leaving an abusive relationship. That it's that is the most dangerous time in an abusive relationship, is when you actually do pack up and get ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Because if he's not getting his way and now he harms you, do you stay or do you go?
75% of the women that are killed as a result of domestic violence are killed after they have left.
Bingo.
I need people to know that, because everything
Yes.
is always about why don't they just leave? Well, leave can mean you're going to die.
Right. A lot of them do leave or have left.
Mm-hmm.
And something happens as they're leaving or after they've left.
Yep.
You cannot put the onus on the victim.
Yeah. So many of these stories that we hear related to parents and the children as well is, they left, they were somewhere, they got found, they were approached at work or school because the person couldn't let go. So that's real.
It really is. So when he came to, he says he was shooting her, and in total, he shot her 6 times in their attic. And after it happened, Justice called his childhood friend, Timothy Jones, over to the home, where he says he saw 3 bullet holes in the wall and Fox's body wrapped in blankets. They searched for Fox's keys, and when they couldn't locate them, they moved her body from the attic, located the keys on her person, and then put her back in the attic. That is particularly gross to me, because, what are you doing?
That don't even make no sense.
Why are you being an accomplice to your friend?
That don't make no sense.
Murder.
That don't make no sense.
The protection of violent and clearly guilty men by their friends is... continue.
Now this is about to irritate you even more in 2 minutes. Damn. Hold up. So they searched her body, couldn't find the keys, moved her, and then moved her back after they found her keys. Now, what he was looking for was her car keys. Jones said that Justice shot her because, and these are Justice's words, she was trying to get away from him. So, wait a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Well, duh.
You shot her because she wanted to get away from you, instead of just letting her get away from you.
Well, that's what happens when, patriarchy teaches men that they are validated and their worth relies on what they possess, what and who they possess. Mm-hmm. So that means possessing women, possessing children, possessing things. And so if you have a woman and she leaves, then she is removing some of that value from you, and you can't let that happen.
And it's one of the reasons I have such a visceral reaction to the concept of ownership in romantic relationships and familial relationships. I don't like the idea that people feel like they own their children or they own their partners. You do not. That person is a person all their own. Even if you birthed them and raised them, it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. So Justice gave Jones a cigarette box with 8 shell casings. And Jones then took the cigarette box with the shell casings and dumped them in 2 separate sewers in various areas of Detroit. As payment, Justice gave Jones a watch and a pair of Cartier glasses.
To cover up a murder.
I got a question now, because he shot, so 2 of the shots missed is what we're saying, because he shot her 6 times.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And 2 of the shots missed.
Correct.
And then they went around looking for the shell casings, basically.
Yes.
Yep.
So he was fully aware of how many times he shot because they had to know how many to look for.
But he quote unquote blacked out.
But he blacked out.
Exactly.
Okay. Just want to keep that going.
There's parts of this story where I'm really looking at the investigators kind of with my head cocked to the side, because I can't believe you went through all this trouble to get all of these details ironed out, and it took investigators they took them a good amount of time to charge him. So, in addition to finding the shell casings and disposing of them, Aaron Justice also patched up the holes in the walls left by bullets. And wait a minute.
No.
Wait. Not only did he patch the holes with plaster, but he also painted over it. Like you went through and you have, I mean, he went through with a fine-tooth comb.
He was like a crime scene cleanup.
He watches First 48.
Yes.
He subscribes to the ID channel.
Yes.
But he gets messy. Hold up.
They always do.
Yes, they do. So Jones told police that when he left Aaron Justice, the children were alive and unharmed, which brings me to wonder, how do you know that, and where were these kids when y'all was doing all of this cleanup stuff? Were they sitting there? That's disgusting. Now, Kayla Hunter was 6 years old at the time of her mother's murder. She was described as light brown with long, thick hair that she wore in cornrows. And her brother Christian was 9 months old, light brown, and resembled his mother more than his father. He looks exactly like his mom and nothing like his dad. So there will be photos on our social media and on our website so you can see what Christian looks like and what Kayla looks like. On May 27th or 28th, Justice was seen moving things from their shared home into a U-Haul truck. So, mind you, this is, if she died on the 25th, the 26th, he probably spent that time trying to clean up his mess.
Right.
And then the 27th and 28th, he went and got a U-Haul truck and was trying to like move things around, whatever he was doing. Now, the truck was driven 300 miles between the 27th of May and June 9th. 300 miles. However, the truck never left the Detroit area.
So I got to pause there because as a frequent U-Haul user, that is usually an hourly service, or if you rent it for an extended time, it's maybe a couple of days. It is rare for people to have extended use for U-Hauls unless they are like traveling across states, right? To do long distance moves or what have you. But when you're saying it never left Detroit, that's something that should be a red flag.
So here is my hypothesis. I'm not really sure, and I couldn't find any information on why he had this truck for so long from U-Haul's point of view. Like, my thought is that he said he was moving a long distance.
That would make sense.
But then didn't. Like, he just kept it for a long time after saying, yeah, I'm moving it to this place. But U-Haul they didn't really comment on it. There were reporters who asked the U-Haul office that he got the truck from, but they never really got a straight answer.
Right, because they would have to answer for why they didn't investigate when it was only 300 miles and they had it for that long.
Right, and the fact that it never left the area. So if he said he's going to, I don't know, Ohio or something, and it never left Detroit, they knew that. So they should have said, well, how come you haven't gone to Ohio yet? What are you doing? But, you know, that didn't happen. So what happened after he was moving things was on June 2nd, several days after her disappearance, Justice appeared in court and pleaded guilty to several traffic violations.
Wow.
Okay.
Let me run that back. He murdered his wife on May 25th and then went to court on June 2nd after she had been missing for several days.
Because he wanted to keep up appearances.
He went to court.
He wanted to act like everything was just normal and it was like, whatever. If I don't go to court, I'm going to look suspicious. So let me go to court for these traffic violations.
You know, most people avoid court at all costs, even if it's just for traffic violations.
But he went there.
It speaks to his mental state, I would say. Just the calculatedness, the coldness of it all.
The lack of remorse.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. So, now mind you, this is June 2nd. the search intensified for Alicia Fox, Kayla Hunter, and Christian Justice after Kevin Hunter, Kayla's father, reported Fox, Hunter, and Justice missing on June 6th after they all missed Kayla's kindergarten graduation.
Wow.
So, but wait, that date seems weird, right? It's like, well, how come he's just now finding out that they're missing on June 2nd? Or I'm sorry, June 6th. Because at this point, they're missing almost 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't talked to your kid in all this time? But her family had already reported her missing, but apparently, and I'm just hypothesizing here because I can't tell, but it looks like Kevin Hunter doesn't talk to Alicia Fox's family.
Okay.
Because otherwise they would have reached out and said, hey, Kayla's missing, right?
Right.
But no, they couldn't have done that because he reported them missing on the 6th.
Wow. And this is, again, this raises my question, kindergarten graduation, where's the school?
Where is the school?
Like, the girl's not there for several days.
And this is kindergarten graduation. This is a big thing.
Yes.
The school didn't reach out to the parent at all. Like, they didn't call the dad. They didn't call, So, but here's where it got kind of messed up for Kevin Hunter was Kevin Hunter received a text message from Alicia Fox on June 3rd. This is how calculated this man is.
Wow. It's a whole Lifetime movie right here.
He had her phone and text her older daughter's father on June 3rd. And so Kevin Hunter all this time is thinking maybe Alicia just wants to be left alone because he had heard reports that she was missing on June 3rd. So when she texted him, because he called her June 3rd. He got no answer. Then she texted him June 3rd.
Did anything say what was in the text message that she sent? Well,
it didn't say.
Okay.
It didn't say. And he won't talk to the media.
Okay.
So he received a text message and he's thinking everything is fine. But then when they didn't show up to the graduation, he said, no, everything clearly is not fine. And that's when he reported them missing because Alicia Fox has a very large family and they're very involved. They have a very tight-knit, large family. So when I come to your graduation and none of your people are there, you're not there, my kid isn't here, what is happening?
Something is off.
Something was off.
It's interesting, and maybe I'm nitpicking a little too much, but after the text that he got on the 3rd and the graduation is on the 6th, I mean, as somebody who's been to a couple of graduations, usually there's like some more checking in, like the day before, the morning of, like all these kind of things. Hey, they got anything they need? They all the outfits together. You need to ride somewhere, just those kinds of things. So it's making me just kind of spinning my head a little bit about the relationship between the mother and father, right? Maybe it wasn't the best. Maybe, she sent the text that just says, I'll see you at the graduation, or we're fine. We don't need anything. You know what I mean? Yeah. But something, because there was no, on the 4th and the 5th, no communication. And you still just kind of show up at the graduation without any kind of, hey, we're on the way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff, even when you're not together, even when you're co-parents, there's still something there. But I don't know, maybe I'm just thinking too much.
So I have 2 different thoughts about this relationship that Alicia Fox had with Kevin Hunter. One, Alicia Fox's sister has given several interviews on the news in which she says that Aaron Justice was manipulative and he had a short fuse, and we know what that means. And that he could be violent and he could be intimidating. So one thing I'm thinking of is, was that relationship one that created a rift between the communication between Alicia Fox and Kevin Hunter?
That is very real.
Where it's like, well, you gotta, your husband tripping, so I'm just gonna back off.
Right.
Because I don't want to hear your mouth. Or
she was scared.
Because she was being abused, she kind of, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. It feels shameful. And you are scared, so you don't want to rock a boat. Right. So that it's possible that she could have isolated herself from him a little bit when it came to communicating about their daughter because she just didn't want to set him off.
Right.
And it was also said that she was an introvert. So she's an introvert and she's being abused. That is, prime recipe for complete isolation from the people that you know.
Yeah.
Him included. And some people, when they are being abused, they become almost combative to people outside of that situation because it does push them away, and it pushes them away without you having to be vulnerable.
Right.
Right.
It's a lot. So Aaron Justice presumably sent this text message to Kevin Hunter to throw attention off of him not having spoken to Alicia Fox, right? Now, after receiving an anonymous tip on June 9th, Fox's family went to an abandoned house on Penford Avenue, which is 7 miles away from her home, to search for her and her children. And her uncle Michael, after smelling a horrible stench, went into an abandoned house and found his niece badly decomposed and still wrapped in the blankets that were taken out of the U-Haul truck, the furniture blankets that you use.
Was that anonymous tip from his homie? I feel like the homie was the anonymous tip. Am I jumping the gun here? Because I feel like I'm watching this episode happen, and I'm like, wait a minute.
So here's the thing. We never got an answer on who that anonymous tip was from, but I'll tell you who I think it was. Because the house that she was found in is 3 doors down from Aaron Justice's cousin's house.
Oh.
I think Aaron Justice's cousin called the police. Or called the family. Yeah. I really do. I do. Yeah. And the reason why I think that so strongly is because Aaron Justice took this U-Haul to this abandoned house and sat outside of it for a very long time.
Wow. Right? Because
U-Haul
does have trackers on there. They have GPS trackers. Wow.
He went to this house several times. It was almost like he was staking it out to see if people were going to come to it.
Okay.
Because according to a neighbor who lived across the street from this abandoned home, it had been vacant for about 14 years. Wow. And I know that vacant homes is a big problem in Detroit because they have so much poverty. They have, there's a lot of gentrification happening in Detroit right now. Yeah. Lots of white flight. Absolutely. So you have these vacant homes that are boarded up and people break into them and use them for all sorts of things. I can't imagine finding my family member like that. But yeah, she was badly decomposed. She had appeared to have been dismembered at the knees, but it was actually just really bad decomposition. But her body was intact and there was no sign of the children anywhere near the house. Cadaver dogs searched the children's scent was not found at the house. And like I said, Justice's cousin lived 3 doors down, but was not considered a suspect in any way. Now, late at night on June 2nd, remember June 2nd was the day that Justice went to court. Okay. And it was the day before he texted Kevin Hunter from Fox's phone. Late at night on June 2nd, a neighbor on the 6800 block of Penford Avenue, where the abandoned house was, saw Justice pull up with the U-Haul truck. And he parked, waited, sat for several hours, came back the next day, sat for several hours. It was like he was casing the joint. Now, that late night on June 2nd, he pulled up with the U-Haul truck and finally took the body out to put it into the car. To put it into the house. But the neighbor didn't see that part because the back of the truck is facing the door. So you don't know that he's putting something in. What the neighbor thought he saw was him just scrapping. Looking for bricks, wood, copper, all sorts of things that people will strip from an abandoned home. Justice took Fox's body out of the U-Haul truck, still wrapped in the blankets, into the basement of the house, placed a door on top of her, and left. I'm not sure what the purpose of the door was for. Maybe to try to mask the body.
Make it look like it's part of an abandoned building and kind of.
Now, on June 10th, the day after Fox was found, Aaron Justice hopped on a plane and went to Atlanta.
Okay.
But he went to Atlanta alone. The kids are just nowhere to be found. Because if you're at the airport, that's a paper trail if you have 3 tickets. But he had 1 ticket. And it was a one-way ticket. It wasn't a round trip.
Oh, okay.
He was not planning on coming back. So he hops on this plane, goes to Atlanta. June 11th, the very next day, he was arrested and questioned by the FBI. Now, when you commit a crime and then you go to another state, extradition is not automatic.
Mm-hmm.
You
a lot
can
of people
actually
don't know that,
yeah, you can actually fight extradition, which he did. And he fought and he fought and he fought. He fought being extradited to Michigan until August. He got 2 whole months to just play.
Wow. In Atlanta,
just, carrying on and whatever. Now, his request was finally denied in August, and he was arraigned by video back in Detroit. And he admitted to shooting his wife, hiding her body, and trying to cover up the bullet holes in their home with the plaster and paint. Now, justice would not disclose the whereabouts of the children, no matter what. He has never given any clues or explanation to where they went or if they were dead or alive.
wow.
They did have a family dog. The family dog was found wandering the neighborhood on June 19th with strangulation marks around his neck and cigarette burns on his chest.
That speaks volumes.
Yeah.
That's
the
awful.
fact that you would abuse an animal, I mean, I don't even know what to think.
I mean, so 2 things could have happened. He could have done it, or the dog could have gotten free, and some, people in the neighborhood or somebody in the neighborhood could have got a hold of the dog. Because if this is the 19th, we're talking about 3 weeks later. Maybe somebody else caught the dog. You know what I mean? Like it could be anything.
It could be.
But he's also a weird abuser. So
yeah,
and like if it's a neighbor, now you got to worry about the neighbors because people abusing animals in any way is not a good sign.
No.
Yeah.
So family members and concerned community members criticized the Detroit police for not issuing an Amber Alert since Fox's car had disappeared. Now, her car was later found stripped at a salvage yard that Aaron Justice sold after her disappearance. And the chief of police stated that the disappearance of Kayla and Christian didn't fit the Amber Alert criteria.
I don't. Okay.
So Amber Alert criteria in Michigan, at least, they felt that the kids were not in a vehicle that they knew. They couldn't prove the kids were in a vehicle. They said that the kids were mentally fit to care for themselves. They determined that the children were mentally fit to care for themselves.
No.
What?
Let's rewind that. Nikki, how old were those kids?
6 and 9 months.
But you know what? They're also Black. So that
makes them
24
exactly
in white years.
Yeah.
Right. Because our children aren't children. And this reminds me, I had gone to, when I was back living in the Bronx, I had gone to this community meeting and they were talking about kidnappings because my zip code 10462 at the time was responsible for half of the missing children in the Bronx, in the entire Bronx. And I remember them, talking about a 2-year-old that was listed as a runaway. And this was so many years ago. And now that I'm thinking about it, it's really stayed with me. Like, how do you classify a 2-year-old as a runaway? And it was a 2-year-old Black girl. And I think that's kind of what got me really on this particular path, was just being blown away that a 2-year-old girl from the Bronx could be considered a runaway.
So let's get into Amber Alert guidelines. There has to be 5 things have to be happening. There is reasonable belief by law enforcement that an abduction has occurred.
Mm-hmm.
You gonna tell me a 6-year-old walked off with a baby?
Yep.
The law enforcement agency believes that the child is in imminent danger of serious bodily injury or death. A 6-year-old and a 9-month-old not being with their parents feels dangerous to me.
That 9-month-old can die in a few hours.
Right. There is enough descriptive information about the victim and the abduction for law enforcement to issue an Amber Alert to assist in the recovery of the child.
Feel like that checks off 3.
Well, I don't know. So this is where I could see them making a case because they can't prove that the kids were abducted.
Right.
Right. So there's no abduction to report because the kids are they've disappeared or whatever, but there's no proof that anybody took them.
Right. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what they stood on in Detroit.
Right.
For saying,
I can understand that.
An Amber Alert. Mm-hmm. And then also the abduction of the child has to be 17 years or younger. And then the child's name and other critical data elements have to be entered into a National Crime Information Center system. So I can understand why they would justify not having an Amber Alert. But I think that either Amber Alerts or there needs to be another system for missing children that needs to be devised and have a broader spectrum of checklists for missing kids.
So there are a couple of other ones that have not been adapted nationally. Yeah. And we can put some information, and maybe we can do a separate episode on that because I remember doing research. There's a few of them, and we did one for the first episode, the Relias alert, which is only in Florida, and that's related to children that are in, registered with the Child Family Services Department, and if they miss school or daycare or something like that, and that's something that should be adapted nationwide. And there's another one that I have, and we can talk about that. But yeah, this advocacy to get some of these more fine-tuned alerts to be adapted nationally because there's different situations. That's super important.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So after justice was brought back to Detroit, he was eventually convicted of second-degree homicide. He was originally charged with first degree, and the second degree homicide charge was born out of a plea deal.
Okay.
For him to plead guilty. They also were trying to get him to talk about Kayla and Christian's disappearance, and he will not. He does not say a word about these children, and it incenses me. And he was sentenced to 47 to 82 years in prison. The two years is he was already a felon, and so the felony gun charge was the 2 years. Okay. It took me a minute to figure out. I'm like 47. That's a weird number. Yeah. 82. That's random. But the 2 years is coming from a gun charge. So it's for her murder. It's 40 to 80 years. So, I mean, if he makes it out of this, he'll be 100 when he gets out at the max. But it's hard to tell what will happen from there. Timothy Jones was convicted of being an accessory to murder after the fact, and he did serve 5 years in prison, and he is currently on parole. He got out back in March, and he'll be on parole for about 6 months. Now, there have been no leads, despite Fox's family keeping hope alive and staying in touch with media outlets regarding any updates about Kayla and Christian's whereabouts. And they are believed to be alive and possibly in the Atlanta area. My thought is that possibly there is someone else involved that we have no knowledge of that has the children, took the children, and is raising them.
Yeah.
Alicia Fox's family said, regardless of how abusive Aaron Justice was to their family member, they don't believe that he would harm his own child.
So is it possible that he whisked the children off to someone he trusts that he's maybe paying to not say anything, or, whatever, that is looking out for him and raising these children?
My thought, my hypothesis for this is that Aaron has family in Atlanta or in Georgia somewhere, and that he gave those children to somebody in his family and he went to meet them. And I also have this thought that when he came back, when he was extradited back to Michigan, that kind of was a way to say, we are going to get away with these children. Because now he's back in Michigan. They're not looking for the kids in Atlanta. They're looking for them in Michigan. Yeah. Because they don't have a third person. There was Timothy and there was Aaron and nobody else. But
have they checked the family's homes?
They
Like his
have. They've
parents? Oh,
Yep.
God.
They've checked his face. That's why I don't believe that the children are still in Michigan. But I would support the family's assumption that the children are still alive. I never want to assume that they're gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you have any tips, or if you're listening to this and you think you may know where they are, you are urged to contact Detroit Police Department at 313-596-5600. This story bothered me so bad because it was so calculated.
Yes.
And this is one of those stories that we see on Lifetime, on ID, on 2020, but it's always a white person. It's always a white couple. We don't get to see that this happens in our community also.
Right.
Yeah. What's standing out to me, what the spirits are telling me right now, them kids are in Atlanta. And the thing is that 9 months and 6 years old, the appearances change every day.
Yes.
That they will be unrecognizable by anybody that may know them. Is very possible that he called someone up to come and get them. That is not a long drive. I can get from New York to Atlanta in one day. It's not a long drive to get from Atlanta to Detroit. That maybe he called somebody to come up and get those kids and take them back. And when he flew to Atlanta, it was to check and make sure that everything was good and set up the way it needed to be. Probably got the kids some new names and have gone on about the business.
All during that time, he was fighting the extradition.
Because my thought is that in the amount of time that Alicia was missing before her body was found, he had a lot of time to put things in order.
Yeah.
And that's what he was doing. He had the U-Haul truck, he driving all over the city and, whatever. 300 miles is a lot for Detroit, for you to not leave the Detroit area. You got to be driving around all day long, back and forth. Detroit from end to end, east to west, is maybe 30 miles. And Detroit, it's Motor City. There's lots of streets. There's lots of places where he could go and stop and do his business and whatever. And knowing that he is manipulative and has a violent past and has assault charges and things like that. People who have multiple line items on their record of having the same behavior, those are the type of people that I feel like will do anything. They'll do anything. They're manipulative, and you cannot put nothing past people like that. And so I'm really hoping that those children are safe and that somebody's loving them at the very least.
Yeah.
And they probably will never hear the true story of what happened with their mom. They'll probably be raised believing that, daddy loves them, but he was away for something different. You know what I mean? Like, I just imagine what happens when they grow up and they find out the truth. You know what I mean? I think about all of those kinds of things and the trauma and stuff. But stories like this just make you just think about all the children that you know and that you pass by. I don't know about you all, but since I've started doing this show, like, even though we've kind of been in quarantine, but when I do go out and I'm seeing children now, I'm just kind of like, is that really your mama?
That happens.
You know what I mean? Like, it's weird. And I know, like, a few years ago, because I was watching a lot of these kind of weird movies, and I started getting weird when I would go to these rest stops and see trucks. I would, like, walk by and, like, peek in. Because I'd be wondering, like, are they, like,
what's happening?
You know what I mean? Are there children? Like, I don't know. I just become so paranoid. But maybe it's not paranoia. Maybe it's what we all need to be doing. We need to be looking more and thinking more
about this stuff. Like, because as we all know, not everything is as it appears to be.
Absolutely.
I just get so worried. I remember they had this thing. Remember when the black guy was found with the two white kids, and everybody was talking about racism and stuff. And I was like, hold on. As a social worker living in the United States of America, if I see a black man with two small white children, knowing that black men are 40% of those convicted of child trafficking in this country, my eyebrows are going to raise. It's not about racism. It's about, this shit looks weird.
Absolutely.
Like, this
because it does.
weird. Because it's not like you. So, and everybody's like, oh, it's so racist to assume. Come on. Like, at some point, we have to just kind of be honest about these things and really think about prioritizing the safety of these children.
Right.
And it's not always about racism. It's not always about sexism. Sometimes there's that gut that says something ain't right.
Thumb is not right.
Like,
And
this
I
whole
think that
conversation makes me think of the video that was on Twitter the other day about that woman in the bathroom trying to lure this other woman's daughter, and people are like, oh, she probably has a mental illness, you shouldn't be so upset. I was like, but she is trying to lure a person's child to come, like, she's saying she's going to snatch this child. What do you expect the mother to do? So we get
Right.
into this whole pontificating about what is right and wrong, but you're not thinking of the actual safety factors that go along with this.
Right. I think that hypervigilance can sometimes enter our lives and wreak havoc because it leaves us looking around nervously for something bad to happen. But I think that there's times when it's definitely useful, and we just got to keep our head on swivel and pay attention to our surroundings way more than we actually do. Because there's several instances where people say, if I just had, said something, did something, called somebody, known somebody, I could have stopped something from happening. It's time for people to start changing that, instead of saying that, actually doing it and saying, well, I was just making sure everything was okay.
Black Girl Missing Podcast is researched, written, and produced by us. It's a labor of love by 3 concerned Black women who want justice for missing Black girls. Today's episode was written by Nikki and produced by the Full Service Radio team. You can find us wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and be sure to follow us on social media. And on Twitter, we are at BLK Girl Missing, Facebook at Black Girl Missing Pod, and Instagram at Black Girl Missing Podcast. Visit our website for more information about each case at blackgirlmissingpod.com, and email us at blackgirlmissingpodcast@gmail.com with any tips, feedback, or names of girls you want us to look into. Have a good day.